Welcome to the Sarah Scoop Show. It's time to get the scoop with Sarah.
My name is Marieve Herington, and I'm an actor and a writer. And right now, I'm probably currently best known for doing Tilly on Big City Greens on Disney Channel. Yeah, so Big City Greens is a fish out of water story of a country family who moves to the big city. Our last name is Green, so hence Big City Greens. And it's just these country folk adapting to city life. And so I happen to play Tilly, who is Cricket, the lead's older sister, and we live with our dad and our grandma in kind of this shack in the middle of like a New York City-esque metropolis, and how we irritate the members of this thriving metropolis, and how we learn from them. And of course, now we are 2 seasons in, and how we're adapting to those people and making friends and all that stuff. So it's a really charming and very funny show. What I love about doing the character of Tilly is that she is so confident. Just because she's sort of like a slightly quieter character does not mean that she is not confident. She has a real sense of herself. She's not one of the popular girls. Like, she doesn't fit that mold either, and yet she's really secure in who she is, even though that's a little bit of an oddball. And I think that's such a positive message to put out there for kids. And I think that's why it's resonated with a lot of kids, boys and girls alike, is that she's really this just great example of just owning exactly who you are and not apologizing for it. And to me, Tilly is a character who makes kindness cool. And she's just that is her greatest character trait. It's also sometimes her greatest flaw. She's like kind of too giving in moments and almost a little too gullible. But I love playing a character that puts that out into the world. You know, like, you can sleep. There's plenty of shows on TV. There's plenty of cartoons, and they don't all have like such a good message, right? But this one really does, and this particular character is close to my heart for that reason. And it's been lovely that it's, you know, really burrowing its way into the audience's heart as well. Like, the trouble that Tilly gets into is always, you know, because she's too kind, not because she's too selfish or anything like that. So even when things get bad, it's because she's so good, without ever being like irritating or saccharine. The writers do a really good job, I think, of writing that line of like creating this good character that's not like, you know, goody two shoes. Yeah, definitely with COVID, you know, I've been writing now for almost 7 years, so it was not something that just sort of happened overnight. There's a lot to learn, but definitely with COVID, the writing has been really, you know, what has taken the forefront for myself and my writing partner, my husband, because it's like production is just starting up in Hollywood now, right? Everything was shut down, with the exception, of course, of voiceover. So it really allowed us a lot of time to complete these projects. Now, regarding writing on the show, we were just freelance writers for an episode, and I know that they plan out like how many freelance episodes they're going to have per season quite a bit in advance. So should the opportunity present itself, we would love to, but we also recognize that, you know, they have like their dedicated writer's room, and it doesn't always make sense to bring in new people into it. But certainly, we know the show, my husband and I, you know, I know the show very well, obviously, having done every single episode, and he has watched every episode. We certainly are extremely familiar with the show and would welcome that opportunity again if it came up. Oh man. I don't know that anybody's ever asked me that question. Just an idea that came to me from out of nowhere would be like it'd be fun to see like Tilly and Cricket, for that matter, possibly go to summer camp. I don't know where that came from. That's literally never come into my mind before this moment. But that might be kind of interesting to see how they fare. Just the two of them with no sort of adults around. I had great experiences at camp as a kid, so that might be fun. But the reality is that I was asked previously with the episode that we wrote if I really had this hankering to make it like a big Tilly episode. And the answer was no. It's not like I've had this yearning to play something that the writers haven't provided thus far. So it was just sort of, we came in with a number of ideas, some that were more Tilly centric than others, but that was never kind of the focus going in. It's just like, what would be some fun stories that would fit within this world, So I don't have anything sort of like emotionally that I haven't experienced yet. I mean, I guess it'll be interesting to see in the Halloween episode from last year, Tilly fell in love with this kind of like boxing I don't know what you call those, like at a boxing gym, those like tough guys who have like no arms made out of plastic that people box. Tilly had fallen in love with that guy, but I'm curious as to see like what Tilly's actual first love. We've seen Cricket fall in love with Gabriella, and I'm curious to see who Tilly might have a crush on in future as she gets older. That might be interesting. But for the moment, we've seen Tilly go through a lot emotionally, and it's been very fun to play. I think probably my favorite episode, and it's so hard because there's so many now. I think probably my first from season 1 was Photo Op, where, we go to the mall for the first time, and Tilly basically learns how to lie. I think that's a really interesting thing to see such a good, wholesome character learn how to do this bad thing. That I thought was really entertaining. But then recently, watching Chipocalypse Now, which was our big half-hour special coming back from sort of the winter hiatus, I was here's the thing. It's hard to sort of shock me in watching these episodes back, right? Because I read them before I record, and then of course read them and do them. So I've done it twice, and then so by the third time I'm watching it, it's like it's hard to blow me away because I know what's coming. And yet I just felt like it was so high stakes. I was so nervous for the Greens. I thought it was so incredibly well written. The score was great. So I just thought that was a very exciting episode. And then I think I just have a really soft spot for Tilly style, which is where Tilly is experimenting with her own style. And ultimately, I just love the way that episode ends, that she gets her ears pierced, and it's not about changing her style for anybody else except for herself. And again, I just feel like that's such a special thing about this character, that she does things that feel good to her, and it's not about the outside world, it's about being true to herself. So I have to admit, so first of all, I'm Canadian. So that is, it is very much, some people are like, where in the South are you from? And I'm from the North, I'm from Canada. But I've always had an affinity for accents, and not in the traditional way of like studying. I'll sometimes get an accent that I'm not super familiar with, and I'll pull up these YouTube videos, right, of learning how to do. And it's like, oh, the A sound is pronounced like this, and the R sound, you do this. And I can't learn an accent like that. To me, I need to be immersed in it, whether that's preferably going to the region, going to the country, going to the whichever state in the South, right? Or even just watching a TV show, and watching hours and hours and getting absorbed. Like when I was watching The Crown, UK accents were just sort of, that's the way I learn accents. I can't learn them by the rules written down, because otherwise I feel like it mows over my acting, and that's all I can think about is, oh, am I pronouncing this correct? So for Tilly, that was not an accent that was researched. It was mainly just, being here in the States for a number of years. And to me, I actually have always thought that the Southern accent was such a beautiful accent, and to me, it feels very exotic, right? I always thought like, ooh, the U.S., like, oh, that's so. It's always felt very foreign to me in this like amazing way. So, and they had said actually on the audition sides, I can't even remember if they said to have an accent or they had just put like a couple y'alls here and there. So it was it was very light, because in fact, I think they did say to have an accent, but lightly, because they didn't want it overdone. And they never specify exactly where, or even if they're from the South, but we know that they basically all we've been told definitively is they're country folk and they have the slight twang and kind of have left it there. Yeah, so I've been acting since I was 9 years old, and my animation journey is pretty different than most people. So I'm from just outside of Toronto in Canada, and the market's so much smaller there that you don't really have like an agent for commercials and for TV and for the here in LA. They're all different people, different departments, possibly different agencies. But you have one agent there who handles everything because it's a smaller market, and she just started sending me out for animation. And I started booking it and started enjoying it. It's not something that I ever would have thought, though, because I didn't grow up watching cartoons. I actually wasn't allowed. Because I think my mom thought that all cartoons were either like Roadrunner and she's like the Wile E. Coyote. She thought it was like too violent, or it was The Simpsons and it was too adult. Like those were kind of her two views of what animation was. So I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up. But it just kind of stuck, because I guess if you have a natural voice like this, that happens. Then I've continued to do both in tandem with the, on camera and voiceover. And then I started doing commercials and everything. And what's nice is, when one's busy, the other tends to be quieter, and vice versa. And now with the writing too, it just kind of rounds everything out nicely. I also think that there's a perception that people like have to choose their on camera actors or their voice actors or whatever, and or their writers. I think now more than ever, more artists than ever are doing everything, with being able to put your own stuff on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. My husband and I made 36 episodes of an Instagram series where we wrote it, I starred in it. You kind of have to do it all a little bit, and they really do all support each other. And at the end of the day, animation, voiceover, it's just acting. It's just, you're only acting through one channel. So to me, it's all the same. Well, I would say watching, even though I know I just said I didn't grow up watching animation, I think uh, knowing the difference between like this is like if you've already got an agent, I would say definitely watch the stuff you want to be doing, because there's a difference between a Nickelodeon sound and a Disney sound and a Cartoon Network sound. But even prior to that, I would say if you want to get into animation, usually you're going to go through the channel of getting a commercial voiceover demo first, and getting a commercial agent. And then, once you start booking, then you'll get some opportunities in animation. Usually my advice would be to train. There's some great teachers out there. And now that with COVID, I think a lot of them have moved, who weren't doing it before, some teachers who weren't teaching online now are. So you can study there, because I would just say don't rush to get a demo done. They're very expensive, and you do want to spend the money. because it's basically your uniform. You want to show up looking and sounding great, but don't rush to that. Don't rush to get an agent. Don't rush to get your demo done. Nowadays, like compared to, say that I had set out to do animation, gosh, like over 20 years ago now, there weren't all these resources. Like now, there's D. Bradley Baker has this amazing website, I want to be a voiceactor.com. I know the VO Buzz Weekly is another like YouTube voiceover. You can learn that. There's plenty of podcasts. You can educate yourself actually without spending a dime, which is amazing. And then when you feel like, okay, you're playing with some different sounds, maybe you're parroting some accents that you're hearing. Maybe you're having fun like inventing some characters. Maybe you bumped into somebody at the grocery store. There was a checkout lady at the grocery store who was like, had a really unusual voice and a really unusual character. And maybe you start to mimic that, And so once you can actually really start to prepare for this career all on your own, anywhere in the world. And that's really exciting. And then, maybe you reach out to a teacher and you start training, and then maybe it's time to make a demo. And then, you get an agent in whatever market you're in, because it's not just LA, right? You can get agents in, oh gosh, I mean, I used to have agents, and I've let go of some of the smaller market stuff just because there's only so many hours in the day. But Pacific Northwest agents, or like Chicago, or Atlanta, they're everywhere. So that's kind of what I would do, is say, like, step one, immerse yourself in it. The internet has so much information for you. In fact, I believe Nancy Cartwright just came out with a masterclass on animation acting. I haven't checked that out, but I would imagine she has some really interesting things to say. So go down those YouTube rabbit holes. They will serve you well. And then just don't be afraid to start practicing. You can get a pretty affordable mic nowadays, just on Amazon, and start listening to your voice. Play around. Don't be scared. Go wild. It's animation, right? That really serves you well. It's like, a lot of those terms I had to learn because I failed. I was in the booth and I just didn't know what it meant, and I had to just kind of guess or ask for clarification. Now, like, yeah, you can give yourself an amazing education before you're in front of the decision makers, the gatekeepers, the times where it really matters. You can really get a lot of this stuff kind of out of your system, try those voices that maybe aren't your best, like, you don't have to have 80 voices. You don't, anybody who tells you that's like, of course, you're going to have more opportunities if you have a broader range and you've cultivated some different ages, maybe different genders, different accents, and what have you. But you don't have to. You have to be a great actor. I would say study those voiceover resources, but also my parting piece of advice would be study acting. Get good at acting, because it's like I almost wish that we could rename it to being like acting with your voice, because then people might focus on the acting part and not the voice part. I know that Tilly has like, a kooky accent, and she sounds like, it just seems like, the voice is what's interesting about her. It's really not. It's the acting. It's her perspective on the world. And that ultimately is our way into a character. It's not a kooky sounding voice. Well, I can't announce. I have really exciting on-camera project that I'll be able to announce, I think probably in the next couple weeks, on my Instagram and my Twitter. So take a peek over at Red Herington, HE1RINGTON. And then, yeah, writing is very, very, very slow, and the getting of things made is very slow, but there are a few projects in the works that I hope to be able to share with you all in probably a couple months. So yeah, I share everything that's going on creatively there. So pop in, say hi, and if I can be of any help, point you in the right direction creatively, let me know. I'm happy to help.
Thank you for watching The Sarah Scoop Show. Head to sarahscoop.com for more.